as well as who are online. Our event is on career development and organization structure. Today, I'm your host, Sanjay Paul. Before we start, for those who are present here in the room, let me do some housekeeping for health and safety reasons. No fire alarm test is planned today, so in case you hear a fire alarm, the fire exits on my right, and use the stair. Do not use the lift. The riverside car park is our the assembly point, and that's where we should get there. Regarding toilets, again, go out of this room straight towards you're facing the kitchen, and on your right there are toilets. So those are the basic things I must let people know here. For those who have joined online, of course, fire alarm and toilet is not really relevant. But however, if you drop your network, don't panic. You have a recording in a few days' time to rewind and see what you have. So you'll not miss anything. So that's a few things. So I spoke about basic housekeeping and toilets, and at the end we have a refreshment and opportunity for networking here. So please free to even and make your network.
Sunday, can I just jump in just for a second? If anyone needs to leave before the end, the doors will be closed, so just grab Julia or like that.
Yes, because of this building, without that proximity card, you won't be able to even go out. So that's one thing. So with that, this is our today's agenda. We've got two speakers, Daljit and Anna. Anna is still coming, not here today, but I just got a text that she's on her way. Daljit is here. You can see him already logged in. So we will go with that. With that, if I may quickly take this opportunity to wish you a very happy Diwali, which is around the corner. Diwali, as you know, is a festival of light. And if I may draw your attention to the middle line script here, Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya. It's a Sanskrit word, what actually it means, take me from dark to light. So that's what it means. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. There is nothing like take me from the dark room to the light room. But what it actually means is take me from the darkness to light, from knowledge and wisdom. And literally, today, all here today, to listen to our leaders, to share, when they're sharing their wisdom and knowledge, to build our career. So that's where we are going from darkness to light. So that's where it comes from, and particularly it matches with the festival around the corner. So with that, I'd like to welcome Daljit, who is already online. A quick intro. Daljit Rehal is Chief Digital and Information Officer for HM Revenue and Custom. Of course, I also work for HM Revenue. And here he is today to share some of his knowledge that he has done transformation for HM Revenue on organizational restructuring and operating model and organizational restructure. So with that, if I'd like to hand over to you, Daljit, just give me 1 second. We will go to your screen so that everybody can see you in a full screen mode. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. So Sanjay, I'd like to start by saying happy Diwali to everybody, and a brilliant way in which you describe what it is and how it relates to, some of what we're doing today, which is really sharing knowledge. So I'm going to just quickly start by saying I'm the Chief Digital Information Officer at HMRC, and in my direct team of civil servants who work for me is of the size around about 4,500 to 5,000 in total, but they are supported by an additional 5,000 staff from the various supplier organizations, etc. And that's a very big, very large workforce there. I am accountable for not only delivery of every aspect of technology, but delivery of a happy place to work, of taking care of everybody's career aspirations and guiding them through that. As a leader, it is not just there. I'm not just there to deliver projects. I'm there to create a place that people are excited about working in and are able to actually share that with the wider community, wider society, and then help to overcome some of the challenges of working in the public sector, because we can't compete with the private sector on salaries. We can't, we can't give people who work here private medical health care. We can't give people a company car, and we can't give them share options. What we give them is training, development, and yes, they get a great pension, but really, it's that is not enough. We have to give a very clear direction in which they can truly develop their career and progress with technology. Now, I've given you this sort of, hopefully you get an indication of the size of this workforce. We have been on a journey of transforming this department into a digital department, and that our real driver is to become a modern, trusted tax platform that for our people makes a great place to work. This is my strap line. This is our strategy. And that modern digital work tax platform has everything you can think about that's current today, needing to be present in that platform, but it has a legacy that goes back to, I think, the Doomsday Book. It goes back several centuries. There are tax laws, tax legislation, tax records. There are, some of the things still written on vellum, some things still on microfiche. I have a legacy estate that a big chunk of it's running on mainframes in COBOL, whilst at the same time, all that's going on, we have to find a way of landing into the more modern cloud native digital world. But at the same time, as that's happening, we have to open up our administration platform to the public. And there's the main flagship program for us is Making Tax Digital. And that is really about publishing our APIs to allow software organizations, small companies, accountants, accountancy firms, audit firms, and also tax agents to consume our services in their own software. So you can see we've got a huge amount of stuff in still legacy data centers, and a really healthy digital presence that has literally millions and millions of interactions every day. Some of you will be engaging that probably for the first time this year as you do your self-assessment tax returns, but some of you will engage it depending on the event in your life. So from the beginning of your life to the point where you've departed and your inheritance tax has been settled, your data is with me, it's with my systems, it's with HMRC, and we have a really strong duty to be the trusted partner of that data, because without that trust, people will not interact with us, and without that, we will all be in trouble, because we bring in total workforce at HMRC is around about 60,000, and that 60,000 population brings in nearly 800 billion pounds of revenue through taxation and through compliancy work that we do, that actually filters through to supporting all of the country, and then that includes everything from borders and trade, EU exit, every good moving in and out, and the way it needs to be declared. We have systems that do that, through to alcohol duty and tobacco duty and fuel duty and income tax, inheritance tax, property tax, stamp duty, you name it. All of that goes towards that figure of 800 billion. In addition to the sort of revenue collected through tax, we have a very strong team that is actually at the forefront of battling against modern slavery, of looking for how, investigating how people are avoiding tax. We do money. We can trace the money. We look for money laundering networks. We're at the forefront of stopping smuggling networks. We are also part of the team that monitors checks if embargoes imposed by our government and United Nations are being broken. So there's a huge set of things. There's a very diverse set of capabilities. There's many things that we do, rather than just what we are known for by and large, by majority of the people. And then one thing is guaranteed: if you are a living, breathing person in this country, your data is there on our systems. And we have an account on everybody. So you can imagine the scale of the operation. So what we've been on is this journey. How do we come out of that legacy world and land everything in the new digital world, including not leaving out artificial intelligence and the progress made there, especially now with the new accelerated world of generative AI, including how are things like distributed ledgers and blockchain going to play a role in that, including how well should we understand the future with respect to quantum computing and neuromorphic artificial intelligence, things that are coming around the corner. So we had this operation where, by and large, most of the work in IT was done through contracts. It's done through managing suppliers, systems integrators, very large tech companies like Accenture, Deloitte, IBM, Capgemini, etc., and to break that monopoly apart and start going for a framework that allows up to 47 other companies to bid for the work that we have to carry out, rather than it being monopolized by those tech giants. And that's the first part of the career progression, career development that I'd like to touch on. That has meant that my teams have got to learn, have got to build skills in being more commercially oriented, how to write contracts, how to select software, how to work with the legal team and procurement teams to be the technology advisor, how to then manage those relationships on an ongoing basis. Why I'm using this example is because it's not often we think about what you can do in your career as an IT savvy person. So just like there are many paths into technology and IT, you could end up working here because you did a degree in physics or a degree in history, because one route for you would be you became a project manager, which is a more generalized skill set. And from that, you delivered projects. And from those projects, you evolved to delivering programs. And from the programs, went to portfolios. And then eventually you end up actually being a director of transformation, and your door towards the executive grading then opens up there. The other direction in which you can go is, you started off as an apprentice, you learned about an application, you understood everything about that application, you moved into supporting that application, you moved into, from that to helping people manage the relationship with that software provider. And that's where you start thinking, actually, there are many ways into this IT profession, but there are also many ways out of it. And you need to have a pathway created for which direction in which you want to go. You could choose to stay and be just technical, and there is plenty of that. So you could start your journey as an apprentice, end up eventually becoming an architect, and doors get open to you that direction, or a developer, senior developer managing a team of developers. So that was a big challenge. And for that, we've had to create a career progression, career pathway for people to pick a journey that allows them to become more commercial. On the other hand, as we've migrated some of our systems from data centers into public cloud, we discovered that actually our developers are no longer skilled to work in the world that we've created, because they're in the cloud native world. Your software developer, because of DevOps and DevSecOps and DevSecFinOps, becomes accountable for actually not just developing but operating infrastructure as well as software, security and policy, as well as just writing programs. The financial discipline needed to take advantage of the elasticity and the charging models in the cloud means that you don't leave your kit running 24/7. It's demand driven, and therefore you stop paying that money. And if you haven't got the skills and the capability to do that, you have to build that capability. So the disruption is a change on all angles. So what we've done is to recognize all of these things and then formulate from that, well, we should really challenge ourselves into how are we going to operate in the future versus how we're operating today. Today, we have 900 applications, the main applications, different tax platforms and different call center and customer sort of contact center applications, and they're all integrated through many sort of integration buses and integration frameworks, and all of that runs on our infrastructure. But the future for us looks like all those 900 applications probably will disappear into something like 10 platforms. By and large, most of these systems that we've got do really very little other than, in the classic architectural terms, you can describe them as order management systems or customer management systems, tariffing and pricing systems, rather than have that specific language of a tax administration, of VAT system. It's a pricing system. It's a tariffing system, sort of things that you get, very modern capabilities in the telecommunications space. So our future looks like we will go from where we are today with 900 applications to something like a handful of platforms. But not only does it look like that because of that part of it, the other part of it is, as we get more and more confident in being more agile and our delivery methods, so that we can couple and tail into that DevSecFinOps world that we're creating, we start to blur the boundary between what is traditionally IT and what is traditionally business. We start getting into multifunctional teams working together to deliver outcomes. So we move away from project-oriented world to a world that's more akin to agile, with all its different flavors like Kanban, Scrum, etc. And that then creates the need for, well, there needs to be a discipline. We can't just have everybody in a very kind of agile way poking systems that collect 800 billion pounds of revenue every time they feel like it. So you need to protect that. That's your platform team. That's where your core software developers and engineers are. They're accountable for that part. And people who want to consume services from those platforms are your product teams. They're the people who create customer journeys, they create reports, they create insight from the data. So there's this, as well as going from 900 applications to handful of applications, we're going from working in an all very traditional waterfall method to an agile method, where we're underpinning that methodology with a capability that requires us to be DevSec FinOps. At the same time, we've gone from being monopolized by really big systems integrators to opening that competition up to many, many other players, including small, medium enterprise organizations who often have been left out from bidding for any work with us and partnering with us. So all of this forces you to think about, in the past, we had a IT culture which was very much centered around you give me your requirements, I'll go away and do the analysis, and my architects will look at that, and we'll come back with what we think the impacts of this is, and we'll come back with what the cost will be, and then we'll kick off a project, and then that project will eventually deliver that to a world where actually we're going to go from to a very different approach, which is we don't want your requirements. We don't need requirements. We need what's the outcome you're trying to achieve? What are those outcomes? How many different ways are available to us to achieve those outcomes? So an example of this could be, I want to do this project because I believe if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll have fewer people calling me in the call center, and therefore I can be more efficient. Right, so why not take a step back and say, what you really want is fewer people calling you in the call center. Now, we don't have to do that using what you thought, which was X, Y, and Z. We can do that by putting in place a digital assistant. We can do that by having better automation at the front end that makes it clearer for people to get what they're trying to do right in the digital channel, so they don't call you on your phone. Because you're now homed in on the outcome rather than a prescriptive set of specifications and requirements, you're able to innovate, you're able to take advantage of these platforms. So we've had to kind of create this operating model, which we're in the process of completing, which will take into account all of these considerations. And the one thing that is guaranteed from all of that is that all of my 5,000 people are going to be doing a different job than they are doing today. It will be better because we're going to break that cycle of being a subservient IT organization that is there to be told what to do and then go away and do it. We're going to be the co-creators with you. We're going to be in the room with you in those multifunctional teams. So everything people want to do, we will still have the discipline. We will still adhere to the standards that we need to, but we will start with our architects being at the forefront, imagining a different world, working with our business teams and business architects, from which ideas will be funneled into an innovation pipeline, from which an evaluation is done on which ideas to promote. And from that, we decide what the delivery method and delivery partnership is going to be. And then we engage either a product team or an engineering team, whether it's a platform-centric change or a product change in the configuration space, taking advantage of some of the new platforms we're putting in, which allow end consumers to utilize low-code, zero-code capabilities and create their own workflows and enterprise solutions. So all of that has meant we've had to rethink how we're organized and how we're going to operate. And we've created an operating model that accommodates today, but evolves to that in the future. So when you've got all of that opportunity and you've got people who've been working in a very traditional way for so long because there hasn't been that investment in moving their side of the business on, I see it as my job to close the gap between where you are today with the skills you have today, where you want to be, and creating that environment that allows you to move from one to the other. And from that, we've created our own learning and development culture. We call it the CDIO University. It's had thousands and thousands of people taking courses and learning new things that they didn't know before. In addition to that, we've created our own cloud boot camp, an architecture boot camp, and also a data boot camp. So these are asking people if they have an interest in becoming an architect, and they're not one today, they're a project manager, then there is a pathway for you towards that end goal by joining the architecture boot camp. And at the same time, your additional training will come from things like the CDIO University. Plus, we will tap into the partners that we work with to get them to also do some training of our people for us. So really, I hope this conversation is showing you the sort of size, the scale, the complexity of what it is that I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to get us all there. And this is not simple. This is not easy thing to do in a sort of civil service context, because this is public money. Everything has to be justified. Everything is open to scrutiny by the National Audit Office, and the ministers can summon my boss, the chief executive of HMRC, Jim Harrow, to come to Parliament and say, last year you said you wanted £10 million to fix this system. Can you tell us what went wrong? Can you tell us why that system isn't fixed yet? Not in a private meeting, but in actual public accounts committee in Parliament, where MPs can ask those questions. So we've got, a massive responsibility and accountability to show how every penny is being spent wisely, and with that, optimize that for what should it be getting spent on in terms of the future and the disruption that we've all faced and we are all trying to catch up with, and how do you take your people along that journey. So really, without my slides, I can't show you that I've got a brand new organizational structure. I can't show you sort of flowchart showing you my new operating model. But I'm sure from what I'm saying, you're beginning to appreciate and pick up what that could look like and the direction in which I'm heading. But ultimate goal for me is, as a leader, not to create new managers, it's to actually create more leaders. And if I can get to the end of this journey in which I will be seeing my business teams with no technical background actually using low code, no code platforms to configure calls to APIs that can do large language models by themselves without needing IT people, then I will have achieved the vision that I've set out to do here. So Sanjay, I'm going to end it there. I'm just warming up. I could go on forever if you want me to, but I hope that was you found that interesting.
Yes, Daljit, thank you for this insight. And literally, if I may pick up a couple of things that you said, the techies who has been in career progression from a developer, tester to an architect today, has to now look for a techno-economic area for selecting a product or a platform. It's a significant change of mindset first, before. So therefore, definitely a learning required when the environment you just mentioned, that definitely helps the people to rebuild their career, reconfigure or refactor their career into that extent. And I really appreciate that view. Thank you, Daljit.
Thank you.
So, any question from the floor? Please feel free to ask. Raise your hand. Anything, or anyone from online? Any hand? So, 1 second, there is a question on the floor. Would you mind, because possibly I want to return the
I just wondered, change is good, but is there much resistance to change?
Could you hear Daljit, or shall I repeat?
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Right. He's asking, what are the resistance to the change you mentioned?
Can you repeat that again? What is the
Resistance to the change. What are the,
oh the the resistance to change really stems from two things. There's an inherent insecurity in trying to take people from where they are comfortable to a new world. So there's this. Uh, uh, I'll give you an example. When you buy very expensive software like SaaS, this is SaaS, not software as a service, but statistical analytical package called SaaS. And you've built models in that, your statistical models, your AI models, your simulation models, and all this stuff for several years. And then along comes somebody like me to say, you don't need to do that anymore because all you need is, TensorFlow, Anaconda, and some open source software in Python. And you know what? You can just not buy that software anymore. In fact, you've got the richest library of anything you can imagine that anybody can do in this world of analytics, because it's all there. It's all our studio. It's all there. It's for free, and you can use it. Obviously, we won't just let you use it irresponsibly. There's that. How am I going to? What you've just said there sounds to me like loads of snakes. You've mentioned Python. You've mentioned Anaconda. I'm an economist. I just know about this product. That's all I want. I don't want to move to that world because it'll mean I have to learn all these new things, and I'm not comfortable with that. So that's part one of where the resistance comes from. People are just too used to doing what they're doing. They have a fear that the new is going to be the unknown, is going to create uncertainty, and they're perhaps not going to. They're not going to sort of progress in that world. The other part of where the resistance comes from is the old main criticism of IT is we hear this from people every 2 years, and then we spend a load of money in it, and it's just the same as before. We heard this when people started talking about the internet. We heard this when people started talking about World Wide Web. We heard this when everybody wanted to go digital. But you know what? We still get 49 million phone calls each year, and we still get 20 to 30 million letters each year. So with all this technology, it's great that you have passion for it. It's great that you are in the technology, know about these things, but we don't see the benefit of these things. And why should we trust you? Why are you going to be any different from what your predecessor tried to do, etc.? And that is the more difficult one, because it is about developing trust. It is about proving. It's about doing pilots. It's about doing proofs of concept. It's about getting what you are saying independently verified and backed, and eventually showcasing some of this stuff. I mean, one of my chief technology officer, Tom Scalich, who was supposed to do this talk today, but he couldn't. He literally took a system that had been neglected forever and ever. And this system was to do with inheritance tax. And it's a very, very difficult system. So when you come to settle inheritance tax, you have to contact us at a time when it's, not a good time for you because somebody's passed away. And at that time, we ask the most invasive questions you could imagine. We want to know who you are. We want to know who you're married to. We want to know where you married before and divorced. We want to know how many kids you've got, how many kids they've got. We want to know how many kids did you have with your previous partner? How many partners did you have? All of this stuff goes into the complex calculation for inheritance tax. And you know what? at a time when somebody's had a bit of bad news, at a time when they're trying to clear their bills and they need to know how much money's been left behind, etc., etc. You've got this system. The people who worked in that area were so miserable. Everybody who'd looked at it previously said, you can't automate this. There's just too many variables. Now, Tom Scallage, my CTO, got together with a new platform provider and some of these people who felt the pain in the business. And within 18 days, they rewrote that. In 18 days, a fully working prototype from zero to it working using low code, zero code technology. And that, doing things like that are the proofs of point that you have to do in order to win the argument that this time around it is different. And people start to come on the journey with you. I hope I've answered the question, Sanjay.
Yeah, thank you, Daljit. Thanks for your time. It's really appreciated. With that, usually when a speaker comes to an end, I tend to hand over a token of appreciation, a small piece of goodies. But we're online today, so I'll make sure I'll contact with your private office and send you there. So thank you once again, Daljit, and really appreciate your time and answering all your questions and sharing your insights. So thank you once again.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Super. For everyone on the call, we're just going to take a minute to swap over to the next
Yeah,
speaker, if that's okay with you. So we'll just go on mute for a second. Anyone in the room, if you
This should be okay. So yeah, it'd be great to have an interactive session. You know, I'll tell some stories about my career, and then I've got Paula here, who's one of my colleagues at Tessian, who's a headhunter previously. So she's just going to talk a little bit about the view from a headhunter and how you can help influence them and what they look for, etc. So hopefully that will be helpful. The bottom you'll see I've actually got 3 jobs at the moment, which is not by design, but this is why I'm looking tired. So I'm Chief Product and Technology Officer at now merged 888 William Hill. So I went in last year just on the back of the merger. So we've been doing a lot of work, which I can talk about later if you're interested. Founder and managing partner at Tessian. So when I left Morrison's, I joined with 2 others and we formed a new bespoke consultancy service where our differentiator is for people that have been there and done it. Rather than we won't just give you a ream of PowerPoints, we actually help people deliver stuff. So that later if anyone's interested. And then got my first kind of proper grown-up non-exec director role, which is really exciting, really enjoying. So again, if anyone wants to hear about that later, happy to do so, because I know a lot of people are quite keen to go into non-exec director roles at certain points in their career. Okay. So
PDF, so it's
okay. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my career and what a headhunter would call a very hoppy CV of all of those brands that I've worked at in the past. It hasn't done me any harm, and actually for someone that's been leading change for most of my career, actually it's then understandable if you look at it in that context. But yeah, I do go to people like Paula and they say, oh, blimey, you haven't stayed anywhere very long, so 3.5 years is your longest stint. In the old days, that used to be a real problem. Nowadays, actually, a lot of companies see that as a positive because you go in, deliver the big change, and then move on. But I did art history. God knows how I've ended up in a career in technology. Really, I think when you're starting out, none of us know what we're gonna enjoy, do we? It's only when you really start working somewhere that you realise. And all I wanted to do when I was doing art history is I wanted to go and work for English Heritage. That was the dream. Did that in my second job after leaving university, and found that the bit I loved was their listed building database and helping project manage and doing some development on that system. And the academic side of the listed building process, I just found incredibly slow, really interesting, but very, very slow. And it's not until you're in your 20s, is it, that you get out there and you do the work that you start to realise, you know, what you're actually good at and what you enjoy doing. So then I went to work for PA Consulting, did a few years for them, got to work at lots of different organisations, really kind of taught me how to do proper project management. Got to work on a digital television project out in Amsterdam, got to work at Mercer Shipping out in Copenhagen, was part of the team that launched Egg Bank, worked at the BBC. So for somebody in their 20s, it was a really rich source of experience and working in lots of different organisations, which I think sowed the seed. You can see from all the logos, it sowed the seed for me on wanting to learn, get into different organisations, add value across lots of different change programmes. So really my career has been that project management into programme management, into being programme director. And then when I was at Whitbread, so I took, when I had my children, my first daughter, I thought I'll go interim because then I can take, I think we've all had this dream, I'll take the summer off every year and spend with my children. I won't work as hard if I'm an interim. I'm sure a few of you have done the same. Actually, I've never worked harder than when I did that interim. I did 5 years. I worked at Norwich Union, at the FSA as was, and Whitbread. Really great. And the bit for me was I kept learning and I kept moving on in my career, and I was doing different roles and I was just broadening all the time. That's the only way, because there was a really old-fashioned view of contracting and interiming that, oh, it's just, you know, it's old school people who can't do a proper job, they're just there because no one will take them on permanently. That's shifted massively, hasn't it, in the last 10, 15 years. And I've got massive opportunities to learn and develop. And while I was at Whitbread, the CIO said to me, why are you doing all these big change programs for other CIOs? Why don't you go and become a CIO yourself? Hadn't even occurred to me. Wasn't even anywhere on my radar. And I thought, well, why not? Why? Because for me, looking at CIO, I was thinking that's an operational role. That's not a change role. But actually, when I started reflecting and seeing all the work, certainly those last 3 jobs I'd done, they were all transformational CIO roles, and they were just using people like me to come and help deliver. So I did the rounds with the headhunters, made it very known that I got all these skills. I'd done majority of those sort of senior leadership roles within an IT department, and got called one day with Halford's CIO role. They were going through huge transformation, needed to massively refactor what they were doing for the customer, how they were showing up, what tech drive and deliver for customers. So went there and I just had an amazing time, and then got a call from Morrison's and went there again. Big transformation period. David Potts was in, creating a whole new team, needing to change everything about processes, OD, setting up new streams of work, new wholesale division. You know, the list of tasks was endless, as well as sort of the heart and lung surgery on their massive Oracle platform that they had. So it was a real mixture of obviously, you know, flying the plane, keeping the engine running while you know, doing a heart and lung transplant. Completely mixed my metaphors, but you know what I mean. And then after Morrison's, I just thought, what do I want to do, and what will make me happy, but get that real balance. That's on my hints and tips in a minute. That real balance between what can I give, what value can I drive into an organisation, and what can I get back. And I always think it's got to be 50-50. That's something I've had to learn over the years. It's got to be 50-50. because you've got to be selfish about some of the stuff. You've got to really say, what do I want from this role? What do I want to learn? But also, what's that value that I'm going to give back? So started Tessian 4 years ago now, with the idea that I wanted to work with lots of different clients, still wanted to be very hands-on, still wanted to be driving change, but actually do it with as a more of a consultancy model with some organisations. And I've had Fortnum's and Asda, and I'm working at AAA William Hill at the moment, just really helping drive that integration and change. And both Asda and 888 William Hill have both been post-mergers, which has been a fascinating learning experience. Because it's always the area of post-merger is the technology's been underestimated. The technology change, it won't be surprised to anyone in this room, is always underestimated. I don't know how much we pay, I don't know if there are any of the big four on the line, but however much we pay the big four to do the due diligence, it's a classic. I mean, I won't argue, it gives me some work to do, but you know, you think we'd have learned by now. So you know, that was key. I'm just trying to. So big lessons learned. I think absolutely knowing that I love delivering change. I love being part of that. Couldn't really do an operational role, but I didn't know that there was a difference when I started out. Of course, none of us do. But then trying to find a vehicle, which I've found in the last few years, where I can do both. Actually, I can help grow my own business, but go in and really support clients and work hand in hand with them and drive that change at the same time. And I don't have to change my pension every time I do, which is always a bonus as well. So I just thought I'd give you some of that. Oh, that's not the wrong way. There you go. Can't even use technology. So first thing I just wanted to talk about was being an outcome-focused technologist. And I know this is said a lot, but we're really bad at doing this in technology because we get so caught up in what tech can do and how exciting it is and what it's made up of. That businesses now, and this has matured, and actually even those terms, you know, tech and IT and the business, and you know, we've all tried to get rid of those terms and we still come back to it. But what we've got to do is absolutely be the growth engine of business. I mean, when you think of things like that as a technologist, it just unlocks your mind, and that's been a big learning for me across my career. It's not right, what's IT doing, or what's product doing, or all of those good things that, yes, of course, you've got to do, but you've got to keep bringing your teams back to how are we growing this business today? How is technology unlocking that future, that development, that growth, turnaround, mergers, whatever that business outcome is? How are we going to be the engine at the heart of all of that? And that I find really grounding, and it works really well with getting teams to buy in to what we're here for. And I think sort of some of the, when you've got that in mind, all the challenges you've got around putting in a new operating model or processes, or the way you're working with your business colleagues or commercial colleagues or you know, finance colleagues, it also gives you credibility, because you can hold your head up high because you are very clear what your role is in an organisation. And there are not that many parts of an organisation that have the privilege to be able to do that. And that is what tech's for. And we were hearing earlier all the funky new tech that's coming out, you know, the way that we can just low code, no code, or AI, and we can literally just spin up prototypes, etc. What we've got to be careful about with that is it absolutely is focused on an end goal and something that the business is seeing as a problem, or even better, we're out with the business and we're so close that we know what those problems are, and we don't even need to be asked. We're part of that triage team that's already knowing where the pain points are. So I think that's just something that's been a real kind of career shift for me in terms of the way to engage teams and move them on and get them moving. So other hints and tips, I guess. The one thing I have learned is being flexible, and what I've not done is planned my career that said, right, I'm going to be a CIO one day, okay, these are X, Y, and Z, and then I'll get there. We know life doesn't work like that. But it has been about that balance of, as I've already said, constantly thinking, right, what am I giving? And this I've only learned really in the later part of my career. What value am I driving to this business? What am I giving? And why am I very different? And why am I going to add value here? And then what am I giving to the business? It's got to be a 50-50 split. And when you start to think like that, and I'm particularly, I mean, there's two women in the room, but this is particularly pertinent to women that I've coached and mentored over the years, because often, and it's a rule of thumb, it's not exclusive, but a lot of women lack that confidence and actually are all about pleasing the organisation or the people around them, and they're not selfish enough. And I constantly have to be coaching a lot of women I mentor in be more selfish. What do you want to get out of this? And then thinking about what's that next role, and what am I going to learn? And it's not about titles, and it's never been about titles. The people that set out to, right, I'm going to do that, they're constantly disappointed. And you've got to stay flexible, but you've got to think, actually, I'm going to be learning something here. And that's the biggest learning I had in those 5 years where I was a contractor interim. Every role that came up, I was thinking, what am I going to learn out of that? And if it's not going to learn out of it, if I already know how to do it, then where's the stretch? Where's the learning? And that takes a level of confidence, which most of us flag, because it's not really in there. You've got to be brave, and you've got to overstep your confidence boundaries sometimes to grab that opportunity. And I think that goes to my next point really, which is know just enough to make the leap. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know what type of organisation is this. What's the role of technology? If you're going to be a technologist in there, what's the role of technology here? Am I clear about that? Ask that when you're meeting people, and then everything pivots from around that. But make sure it's a challenge. And then there's loads about knowing yourself. And again, as technology people, we are rubbish at being self-aware. I think we're getting better at it. But we think it's all about what we know the tech, we know the task, and that's enough. It's absolutely not enough to be a really powerful leader in this day and age, because you've got to be business focused, you've got to be people centric, and you've got to be resilient for sure. But you've then got to really understand where you're going to be different. How are you going to drive what you're needing to drive compared to someone else? And that's a critical factor. So knowing yourself, being self-aware, understanding your values, understanding why they fit or they don't fit with an opportunity that's coming up. It's something I do with all of my mentees. Get out a great big list of values and say, right, choose your top 12, choose your top 6. And then understand that your values are your gut instinct. They are, when you're making a decision, be that a technology task decision, or it's a people decision, or a life change decision. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something and it's not feeling right, understand your values, and then you'll work out, why is this feeling like that, and why is it not feeling like that? And then, even if, once you can identify where the feeling of being uncomfortable is, then you can really start to make that decision. And the trick is to harness that being uncomfortable, recognizing it, and it's the old phrase, name it to tame it. If you know why you're feeling uncomfortable about a decision you're making, go do it anyway, but know that's why you're uncomfortable. It really unlocks your opportunities and the decisions that you make, be that a technology decision or something else, or a life-changing decision. So you don't need to always be comfortable, but if you understand why you're uncomfortable, you can push yourself and you can move on. So that's one of the lessons I've learned. And then the other big bit for us as tech people is when we move into those next levels, those managers, heads of, directors of roles, how do you let go of the detail? Because we all love tech, that's why we're in tech, but you can't do everything. You have to give something up, but you have to have people you trust. Of course you can go and get involved, but you can't do both, and it's a perennial problem of how do you take specialists? Should you take specialists into leadership, or should you always have a different track within your operating model for specialists? So we've got to think about, as individuals, do I want to be a specialist? Do I want to be a leader? They are very different. And at the same time, we went through a very long period in tech of trying to get all our tech specialists into great leaders. And some of them don't want to, some of them are rubbish at it. But that's fine, because they're a brilliant architect or they're a brilliant whatever. So the other thing to just think about for yourselves is don't force yourself into a role you don't want to do. If you're a specialist, be a brilliant specialist, be the greatest, and then start to push your organisation to recognise that and have a different stream that recognise you can still get promoted as part of a specialism stream, as well as be a manager and a leader. But they're two very different things, and you don't have to be brilliant at both. But if you do want to go up into leadership, then you're going to have to find ways of letting go. Biggest way of doing that is having people underneath you that you really trust in your team, and that you can just go play every now and then when you want to. So I'm just going to get Paula to just do, I said it's interactive and then I've just been waffling on, so forgive me. Paula's going to just talk about the view from being a headhunter, working with technology people, and then we'll have a bit of a chat. I think that's the magic spot.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Paula. I work for Tessian as an engagement manager, which means I go out and source the best associate consultants for change and transformation projects. So if anyone's an associate consultant and looking for some great projects, then come and talk to me. And that goes across from project, program, transformation directors and so on. But prior to that, I was a headhunter for around about 15 years across higher education, retail, various sectors, but always sourcing on transformation and change. So big tech programs, small tech programs, I've supported on them all. And I suppose one of my strengths is finding the right people for the right projects at the right time. And when I'm out there and I'm looking, obviously there is a lot of highly qualified tech people out there saying they can do what they can. But one of the questions that people fail to ask, they'll ask about the project, what system they're using, but you'll fail to ask, what's the culture like? What are the people like? Like you asked earlier on, how resilient are they to change within the business? How am I going to work that? And is my personality and culture fits and values right for the company? So it's a really good question to ask straight away to make sure that's the right company for you as well. And then another one is stories. So tech jargon, I'm not techie at all, but to give sort of good examples, I have wrote some notes on the train so I get brain fog. But some of them is like, one of the great stories I remember is there was a system, so they had a legacy system and they acquired a number of businesses. So the story of what they told me was there's Belinda down in Cornwall who places orders on the system, and then there's Mike up in Leeds who places another order on the system, but they don't talk to each other. So what do we need to do? We need to join the dots. For me, I totally got what they needed to do, but in the background it was they were going to implement a Microsoft DS system that did it all and spoke, but for me I didn't understand that. But when they put it into layman's terms, so to speak, and sort of got the story, knew who they needed a project manager, knew they needed a business analyst, knew they needed, a whole team there to implement this project. So yeah, I'd say get ready to tell some good stories and practice them. And then I suppose making yourself a differentiator. And again, I think that's picking up what Anna was saying with regards to being a differentiator. So the tech market, it's competitive. It's large number of highly skilled job seekers, but what makes you different? So when you know who the client or the company is that you want to apply for, find out who their competitors are, find out, what systems they're going to be using, speak to people and be personable, join the networks, really like what you're doing today, join networks, talk, communicate. I've joined a lot of networking groups since joining Tessian, and one of them is sort of Women in Change group. And now I really understand change on a system level and a personal level, so that human change element and how it all integrates, and it's really helped myself as well. So I feel like I'm a little bit of a differentiator myself in the role that I do. And then flexibility. I'm obviously we all know that working from home and remotely has changed rapidly over the last couple of years since COVID. So, I mean, how many of us work remotely anymore? Any of us work remotely? You still work remotely. And how would you feel about being more flexible? Is it something that you'd be open to? Yeah. It's not. It's just the way the role is.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a balance between being in the room on your own in the community and interacting with people. And it's very easy to be a Teams person where you just talk to the screen. So you lose that interaction with the business.
Do you miss that human element? Yeah. What role do you do?
I'm a security officer.
Okay. That sometimes you do need to have sort of that time on your own element and
yeah, so there's stuff you can't have a conversation in an open office, but there's also what keeps people awake at night or what should keep people awake at night, and that balance and trying to build that rapport with with the people that are actually carrying the kind of the worry beads is kind of it's a challenge if you're doing it remotely all the time. So that's comes exactly back to that building your network and talking to the business.
Yeah, and maybe starting to say, right, okay, maybe once a quarter, I want to have a meet up. We'll get together, even if it's going for a curry, but we'll have those conversations and just do it yourself. Just ask those questions, definitely. I mean, obviously, ours with regards to global transformation. I don't know how many of you are doing global transformation projects. You. So we all know that obviously time zones and what have you, and you just need to work around that. And working on projects that aren't your niche, I know it's really good to sort of narrow down your niche on specific subjects, but being open to, I have had conversations in the past where people say, no, I'm a project manager, I'm not doing BA work, that's all I do. And it's just not, you just need to be open and be able to help and support and just expand your support within the team and the wider group. And I feel like when technical programs under my knowledge, there's always element of change. So you can have a shiny system, but then you've got the change people maybe in HR and different operational teams that just need you to be there and to be present and to be open, to be able to join those workshops and really support what they're trying to implement and do. And again, that leads to support the team and really be resourceful. So I don't know on a headhunting point if anyone's got any questions. No? Oh, sorry, has anyone have any questions? Oh, I'm messing the spot, I've moved about. Does anyone have any questions? No? No? All right, thank you very much. Thanks. So that was all we wanted to share today, just some kind of thoughts from our lives and what we're seeing and what's going on in the world. And just, keen to see if you've got any questions, any stories that you want to share yourselves, because that's fascinating to hear.
How did you get into mentoring?
Mentoring. When I was the last long time ago, they just weren't mentoring, it just wasn't a thing. I mean, I learned quite a lot from the only female partner at PA when I was in my 20s. It wasn't a formal mentoring thing, but I learned a huge amount from her. Mostly be yourself, do it your way, which stuck with me for a long time. But it was through the Women in Tech groups. But actually, we've set up and we did the first year last year, Tessian mentoring, because actually all the mentoring schemes I was doing was all women in tech, and we wanted to do something that was all gender and all leadership, not just women and not just tech. So we've kicked that off, and actually it's been really successful, hasn't it? And lots of people are wanting to come, because there just aren't that many schemes, ironically, outside women in tech. It's the one thing that's gone really well. So we do a scheme where somebody senior comes along and they bring somebody brilliant or fast track or whatever they decide needs mentoring, and then we do a swap, and everyone swaps it out. So that's if anyone's interested in that scheme, we're just kicking off a new year of that. But that's of interest. But yeah, I sort of fell into it just through the Women in Change type networks. Do you do mentoring yourself?
I have done it in the past. I think what you said about giving people confidence to kind of be selfish and own your own careers and kind of overcome some of the institutional culture that exists where female colleagues don't get recognised or voted in the way that they should do. I think resonates, and I think it's rather just do a very helpful role, which kind of like helps other people, not necessarily progress. And yeah, there's some very, very good examples at the moment of people that have been in a cupboard for 10 years and they're brilliant at what they do, that help everyone else kind of see their kind of career expectations. Now they've come out into the open and they've kind of like blossomed. They're really succeeding and kind of becoming a leader. That's kind of something that is not prevalent enough, I think.
No, great.
And it's difficult to get some leadership coaches to kind of say that.
Yeah, we shouldn't still be having this conversation in this year that we're in, because we've been talking about certainly the women in tech, but inclusive leadership should have nailed it a long time ago, but we're still a long way away. But there's a lot of reasons that I do some talks when I can. I put it in with my 3 jobs, is because there's a lot of stuff that I wish I'd known in my 20s, and I wish I'd been bolder, and I wish I'd had more confidence, and all of those good things that you get when you're older. But there's no reason we should be telling all these stories of getting the youngsters to get there quicker.
So, about learning about your career. At your level, you'll have a lot of different things. You have activities, you have leadership, business, everything. So, where would you say you get most of your learning from? I mean, with that inquisitiveness, which is important. But yeah, just tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, this last year it's been going into a completely different industry. So I've been in retail for quite a while, actually, more recently, although I forgot to put TUI travel on there. I knew there was one of us. Anyway, I've done a number of industries, but going into gaming was a completely different move. But I thought there's enough retail there, so I get that. There's enough tech, I get tech. But actually, the end customer is completely different. I've never worked in an industry where 99% of the customers are men, especially when you're coming out grocery. And actually, it's not quite extreme, but the majority of your audience that you're targeting are women. So that was very different. So that was enough to get the brain going again and thinking, oh, well, that's completely different. And things like we're putting in the new terminals into our retail shops where you can do gaming. And one of the advantages of 8 is because they've got some brilliant games, they've got their own studio. We can put those now into the William Hill shops. But when I saw this all singing all dancing new cabinet that was going into the shops, and then it printed out a bit of paper, I was like, what? This is new tech, what's going on? And they immediately said, yeah, but the punter likes that. They like to have a bit of paper because it's a debt slip that they can then go up to the counter and cash in. So it's learning about a whole new set of customers, their behaviours. So that's been really stimulating over the last year. And the other bit has sort of doubled down, I guess, the experience I had at Asda, which was the post-merge. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Very full on.
I find it really interesting we talked about not putting specialists in leadership roles on the day when we should. So I come from civil service, the leaders are all civil servants. One of them on a multi-billion-pound project proudly claim they can't even use their own computer. And they often make very poor decisions because they simply don't understand the subjects they're making decisions on. So how non-specialist do you want your leaders?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because that's interesting. You're proud that you can't use your own. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a fine line, isn't it? I mean, it's always been the debate actually with project managers. Do you want subject specialist project managers, or do you want generic project managers? And that's a similar debate, isn't it? I think, it was interesting when I did my MBA years and years ago for kids. I did a cross-cultural management module and learning about how different it is in different different countries really stood me in good stead for a couple of roles I've done TUI, but more recently this one where we're working heavily with an Israeli group. So 888 was an Israeli company. That's got its own challenges, obviously, bless them out there right now. But their remit is very similar to the Germanic remit, where you only get promoted when you are the best specialist in the room. So the person right at the top is the best at everything in that chain, and Israel is very similar. Whereas with William Hill being the UK, actually particularly in our CIO space, in the traditional IT space, a lot of the managers were more generic. So when we were looking at merging the two teams, impossible to choose between, because you've got two completely different sets of people. And actually neither were perfect, because you don't want to be out and out specialists and all they want to do is get into the detail of tech. And because they've got to people manage, they've got to do the budgets, they've got to do all those other things that a leader needs to do. Whereas on the other side, some of the other managers in the UK side were just a bit too generic. So I think there's got to be a happy medium in the middle. We've got to understand that, you know, a leader has a broader role. They have to be, for example, my senior leadership team, you know, I expect them to, part of their role is being an SLT member. They have to make decisions on the strategy of the department, etc. They've got to do the budgets, they've got to do their HR, they've got to run people, they've got to motivate the teams. But they've also got a job to do, which is a CTO or a CIO or whatever their job is. So I think my answer probably is you need to be a third specialist always, but 2/3 as you go more senior, you've got to be broader.
Yeah.
There's no right answer, but that's my answer. Any more? The pizza getting cold. It's always worse going last when there's food on the corner. Any more? Shall we leave it there?
It's great to see that you've done so well, and I sort of take on board what you were saying about being selfish. I just wondered whether you had any insight about something that I went to called on at work quite recently, actually, which was about something called the imposter syndrome. I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
I think we've all had it over the years. I think it's something we're only admitting to each other that is a real thing, and we've all had it. Yeah, and I think that's to my point about just make the leap. You know, sometimes you just have to close your eyes and just do something and just say, I'm going to go for that. And you just, I think sometimes you have to look around, and it's something that I often do in organisations, and I think, you know, just again, it's not very British, but we need to be saying, actually, I'm really bloody good at that bit, and actually they're not very good, but I'm rubbish at this bit, and they're really good. So it is that blend, and making sure that I mean, that's definitely the art of a leader, is blending the team around you for all things that you're rubbish at. I've definitely learned to do that. But it is about that self-awareness, isn't it? And the more self-aware you are, actually the more confident you should be. I think if we don't give ourselves time to be self-aware, then that imposter syndrome can kick in quite easily. So I'd say that would be my trick against it. Yeah, thank you.
About work-life balance and being selfish.
Yeah.
Especially now where I guess a lot of people are working from home. I guess a lot of people have got into that habit of it's easy working from home. They get a lot more time and to the office. So from a personal point of view, you know, you still get woken up in the middle of the night for tech issues, and you know how much commitment at your level do you have to put into the business?
Yeah, thankfully in this current role I have a CIO that gets woken up in the night, so I actually better touch some wood, because I haven't yet this year been woken up with an issue, and we've just migrated several thousand users onto a single tenant Microsoft, so all William Hill now gone to 8 tenants. That was a bit of a nail-biting weekend, but we've done it, and that was certainly one where we had to close our eyes and just rip the plaster and go for it. But I think work-life balance is hard. I've always, and actually I was a single mum for quite a few years, my two daughters, and they were very bossy to me about making sure that I was, you know, if I was on, it was less your phone actually back holiday, but yeah, on your laptop or whatever. I was banned from taking a laptop on holiday by my daughters. So I think I've had that pressure, and I'm pretty disciplined about it. I say to my team, if anything urgent, WhatsApp me, but I'm not taking my laptop on holiday, which you have to do. But actually, with the non-exec, I'm a bit more flexible now, so I have done a call, because there are a set of board meetings across the year you have to go to. So if my holiday clashes with that, I have no choice, you know, because I've made that commitment at the start of the year. But I do try to be as disciplined as I can. It's hard at the moment when I'm sort of doing so much, but my weekends and my evenings are pretty precious. But I do a lot of travelling, so we've got Israel, I'm out to Poland or Romania or up to Leeds, and I've got London, all over. So it, you know, you do have to, that does prolong your days. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. If I may quickly sum up for today what we heard from both of our leaders, one common theme that clearly emerged here. What Anna said, stay flexible and focus on the end goal. The same thing what Daljit said, okay, stay flexible, you are a techie, an architect, enterprise architect, but when it comes to procurement policies and government, it's such a different world altogether. You need to be flexible to step into that and selecting a product and undergo the commercial procurement process. Similarly, during merger and acquisition, the least attention is paid to the technology and nobody can really do the due diligence, which you rightly said. And there, the tech is like us need to really have that business acumen. Am I buying the right product? Is the right margin price they're paying? Whatever. So those checks and balances are different acumen that we need to acquire, and that's where the whole evening we spend on career progression, which those are the things that we need to acquire. So with that, let us wrap up this session.